Eve Austin is an associate counselor with Olive Tree. She, in fact, is just about 30 feet from me right now. Normally, she lives very much across the world towards the west coast of the US. But right now she's at our office and she's working as an associate counselor right now, graciously volunteering her time in a number of ways to Olive Tree right now. So we're really happy to see her here in person and for you to have this opportunity to hear from her. Eve, I'll let her tell you a little bit more about her background, but she's got some pretty serious bona fides. She's been on the field was on the field for I think over 20 years, including in Central Asia and in Turkey for several years. As a licensed counselor. Her husband, who she often kind of works alongside, is a life coach. And I think maybe about half of your practice, Eve, is still with cross-cultural workers online, right? So she's got a lot of experience with seeing people in this part of the world doing exactly the sort of things each of you are doing. And she's getting this training. I'll let her talk more about the functional nutrition part of it because she knows quite a bit more about this part than I do, but she's got some good things to talk about tonight in regards to mood and food and a third part that I'll let her introduce to you. So I'll turn it over to you now, Eve, to take away.
All right, thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here. Yeah, just down the hall from you and be able to interact with the Olive Tree staff. I'm usually, working remote, and I just moved my practice completely to telehealth after having it be about half in person and half telehealth. And so, I've been missing actual colleagues. So it's very fun to be here at Olive Tree. And we were 20 years on this side between Tajikistan and Turkey. And that was my husband and I and our 3 kids. And hi, kids, if you're here. Hi, Tim, if you're here. And now we've been back in the States for 6 years. So that was Northern California and now Idaho. We just moved to Idaho. So still loving to the opportunity to be able to support cross-cultural workers. And love that I get to spend the next hour with you all sharing some of what really is a lot of my own personal journey that turned into, not only me for my own lifestyle sort of shifts, but, or me and my husband, but also for working with clients, just kind of feeling like these last couple of years that I wanted to have more resources to offer. And I also felt like food was a big piece for some people of what they were dealing with or potentially dealing with, but not knowing enough about it to be able to direct that conversation or resource that area. And so, I'm just right at the end of a certification in functional nutrition and just plan to really integrate it into my private practice. I'm not planning to do it as a standalone, but I do think that I've found some nuggets. And so I just am happy to be able to share those with everyone today. So mood, food, and mental fitness is a fun thing to look at because food is actually something that we do every day. Most of us do food 3 times a day, some of us more. And so it's a pretty integral part of our lives, right? So it makes sense that we would take a look at what effects it has on us. And I show this screen just to show you that I start with a check-in really. Head, heart, gut is, I look at things holistically. I think the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, or physical body, is really a prescription for looking at things holistically, a whole person response to what we're doing, whether it's loving the Lord or loving others or whatever work we choose to do and however we choose to live life, that all of those parts of us are such important parts of it. So of life in general. So checking in with head, heart, and gut, even, we can all do that here. Just take a couple seconds to think, why did I decide to attend this webinar? What was I thinking? So that's the headspace. What am I feeling about what I might learn? And then gut response, body response, kind of what what's happening or was happening in my body or might have happened in my body that led to me having even a curiosity about what could this whole mood food thing be about. So head, heart, gut check in there. And that takes us to just, yeah, that curious space. Some things that you can see, these questions can help you get curious about you. What is working when you think about your body and all of you, your head, heart, and gut? What's not working? Do I feel stuck in any way? And where do I see movement? So yeah, what the I feel stuck or some version of that is what we hear often actually in therapy. People are coming because they've made progress or have seen movement in some areas of their lives, but in some area they feel stuck. And so there's a lot of people out there that I could recommend, great therapists, great life coaches, spiritual directors, medical doctors, functional nutrition doctors, all nutritionists, all kinds of helping professionals that really, I would say at the core would like to help people get unstuck, would like to help people feel like there's movement and progress in the areas of their lives where they're looking for that. So getting curious and you asking yourself these good questions can be so helpful, because no professional, as good as they might be, they can't crawl inside your own head and sort of tease these things out. They'll help you soundboard that, they'll help you navigate that and do some investigation, but you are the expert on you. So it's a good place to start here with this curiosity piece. This is important to just see this stat. I think that 1 in 4 American adults are suffering from a diagnosable mental illness. Of course, that doesn't mean they've all been diagnosed. It doesn't mean they're all being treated. 1 in 4, 25% is a high number. We know that not as many are actually being treated. And so this is where functional medicine experts have really started to dig in, like, okay, we know a lot about therapy. We know a lot about medications. We know a lot about medical treatments, but what else could there be? What else is there that's really the other important pieces of the puzzle, let's say, that people could be doing and looking into that could be super helpful? And so, yeah, they're saying, hey, let's take a look at food. And Dr. Uma Naidoo, she's a Harvard trained psychiatrist. She's also a nutrition expert and a professional chef. And she's kind of one of my favorites, honestly. I'm going to share a couple others with you that I do like. But Dr. Uma is, number one, she's a TCK. So I love that about her. India is her passport country, but she was born and raised in South Africa. And then she came to the States just for medical school, I think undergrad as well, and has lived in the States for a number of years. And it was during medical school somewhere in there that she's like, okay, there's a lot about this that we're not learning in medicine, a lot about nutrition, sorry, that I'm not learning in medical school. So that's why later she did become a chef, and then she did a bunch of studies on nutrition. And anyway, so she's kind of one of the front runners, and I just like her. So there's that. If you want to check out Dr. Uma. This was just a little clip from what it's a blog that drops into my inbox once a week, and it looks almost just like this, where it's just a little snippet of a mood that you might be dealing with, and then a food that might be helpful. And this, so Dr. Uma and anybody else that I quote here is not saying, and I'm not saying this either, please continue to take your medicines, please continue to be in therapy, please continue to do all the things that are helping, and take a look at food. Okay, so they're saying, let's look at all the pieces of it. She's not saying, oh, anxiety, okay, you can stop your anti-anxiety meds and just do turmeric. No, not at all, you know. But it's kind of fun, because the way she says is, you know, what can we add that's going to enhance things instead of what can we take away. So it's not like, a starvation diet or elimination diet kind of thing, or it's not has to be all medications or has to be all this. She's saying there's lots of different pieces to the puzzle. So yeah, maybe you've heard of turmeric. She always is saying that we should add a pinch of black pepper because that's what activates the turmeric. Has a strong anti-inflammatory component to it that can reduce stress and anxiety, can also help to boost serotonin levels. So yeah, just a little tidbit. You can put it in lots of food. It really doesn't have a strong flavor, or it's not a flavor that I can detect very easily. So you can throw a teaspoon in a lot of things, a couple teaspoons in, and you won't even detect it. Maybe you've heard of a golden latte. This is popular right now in America. I don't know about other places, but you can easily make it at home with whatever your favorite milk or milk substitute is. I really love oat milk, honey, turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, and then you can also add other things if you like: nutmeg, cinnamon, cayenne. Yeah, if you want to spice it up that way. So anyway, and then you just put it in with your favorite cup of coffee, however you make that, and you have a really tasty boost for your brain and your mood that you get to drink. Here's another little, this is just straight from her. This is Your Brain on Food, which is the title of her book. And there's all kinds of good nuggets in there, but she has a lot of good graphics like this and things that make it pretty easy. I think that's one of the keys, is what's the easy way for me to take a look at what could be helpful, what I can add in to what I already have or what I already eat. And it's gonna just boost things. Yesterday, I threw a sprig of rosemary in my water bottle. I was on a hike with a friend, and yeah, kind of random. I don't know if that really did improve memory and cognition, but I'm just gonna go with yes. And of course, rosemary, it's great in, veggies or chicken or all that kind of good stuff too. Easy little addition there. Okay, here's another goodie. Dr. Drew Ramsey is his name. He's a psychiatrist. He is the author of Eat to Beat Depression and Anxiety. Oops, sorry, I just slipped right past Dr. Drew. And I get a blog from him called Friday Feels. There's always a good recipe in there. There's always a good tip or two. And so I really like Friday Feels. His website is right there. And he had a good piece on the gut. And so I want to kind of move into gut here a little bit. But let me just say the chat is open. And if there's any questions so far, input from kind of what we were talking about with Dr. Uma and any of the material there, you are welcome to put your questions up there, and Lisa's going to help to moderate that a little bit. And yeah, I'll try to pace with you. I hope I'm not moving too fast, but if I am, you can say, hey, what about that? So yeah, here's a fun fact. 70% or more of serotonin is produced in your gut. And why I say or more, because some of the stats were as high as 95%. And so I went with the conservative, the lowest percentage I could find, which was 70. So a lot of us have thought for a long time that serotonin was produced in the brain primarily. So now we know with research these last couple of years, actually most of it's produced in our gut. What is it exactly? Why do I even care? Or why should I care where serotonin is produced? Well, it's a chemical that carries messages between nerve cells and the brain and throughout your body. So this is neurotransmitter is the fancy word. Neural pathway is kind of the path that the message travels on, but you need the neurotransmitter. You need something, it's the vehicle, right, that really carries it from point A to point B. So serotonin is one of those vehicles, and it's a very important one because it plays a key role in body functions such as, and if you look at that list, I mean, wow, who doesn't want, improvements in mood, sleep, digestion, no nausea is what that would be, wounds healing faster, bone health, blood clotting the way it's supposed to, and sexual desire. I mean, that's kind of the top 10 list right there, right? Like we would all say, yeah, I'll take more of that, or better functioning of all of those things. So serotonin is super important in that process. So we're going to have to look at the gut and see how can we actually improve things in our gut, which will improve the production of serotonin. So this is Dr. Drew, and he helps us out with figuring out prebiotics versus probiotics. It's not a versus, actually, it's a both and how they work in the microbiome. So it's such a fancy word. It's so fun to say. You're all on mute, so you can say microbiome a few times and just enjoy that. These are really our healthy gut helpers. They're all the organisms that live in our gut, and prebiotics and probiotics are two of the important concepts that will help us understand how are we going to fuel the microbiome? How are we going to help it work optimally is really what that's about. So how are we going to do that? This is how. Prebiotics are foods that provide fiber, and okay, let's just call them fiber. They're what fuel the organisms in the microbiome. There's lots of interesting and fancy foods like Jerusalem artichokes, which I don't know anybody who actually eats those or can source those, especially from all the random places where we live. Chicory root, not necessarily. Dandelion greens, some people have those growing in their lawns maybe. But what about just some more normal things? What are some more normal options? That would be onions, garlic, lentils, oatmeal, beans. Those are all things that most of us can find in the fridge or in the pantry right now. So let's keep it simple, right? Let's kind of start with what we already have to go with that's in our pantry right now. So the bacteria in the gut digest these things, and then they use the fiber to make all kinds of beneficial things. What do they make? What are those things? Well, these are molecules that help us regulate our immune system. Oops, I just switched us back. I am having an issue. Okay, there we go. Your guy's face is covered up, my little arrow. So the bacteria in our gut can digest these, and what are the beneficial things it can do? Again, who would say no thanks to these things? Molecules that help us regulate our immune system? Yes, please. Molecules that influence and improve our mental health? Yes, please. And many important other nutrients for our guts? Yes, I'll take those too. So increasing both prebiotics and probiotics can help with that. So what could be some of the probiotics? These are foods that actually contain live bacteria, and there's live bacteria in our gut, and sometimes it's just we need more. We need to repopulate that. And how can we do that? Well, there's the 3 Ks: kombucha, which my family says I mispronounce, kimchi, and kefir, which in America is known as kefir. So wherever you live, you have fun ways of saying kombucha, kimchi, and kefir. These 3 fermented foods are the more readily available ones, depending on where you live, but can also be made. And I put the disclaimer in there, if you have time, because a lot of times I feel like the time it takes to find healthy things or choose healthy things or cook healthy meals is part of the deterrent. I don't know, does anybody else feel that way? The time it takes, and then sometimes the money, because in America, all the healthier stuff is the more expensive stuff. And I think that's true here in Turkey. So probably where you live, it could be the same. And yeah, so do we have extra time and money? Often, no. Often we don't have extras of those things. So we'll talk a little bit more about that though. Increasing our intake of prebiotics and probiotics can help us regulate our immune system as mood, as we talked about earlier. The other thing that can be handy is just a tablet. There are prebiotic and probiotic tablets pretty readily available in your larger cities around the world these days. And so in cooperation with your doctor or nutritionist or somebody you're working with, you could decide if that's the way to go. I really think that a supplement of some sort is a great idea for a lot of us who live in places that where we just can't access some of these things, like the food, or we can't create it or make it easily. And so supplements can just be a great answer to that. All righty. So any questions on prebiotics and probiotics and happy gut? I'll keep moving, but
One question
yeah.
on probiotics. So would yogurt and any or all types of yogurt fall into that category? For some people, that's a little bit easier to get than kombucha, kimchi, or kefir.
Yeah, pretty much kefir is the one that has the most active cultures, I believe, but most of your yogurts, and you can see it on the packaging now too, that they often are telling you, how many live cultures, or that it is, it'll tell you basically that this is good stuff, or, better than the next guys or whatever. So it's kind of nice too. Their companies are marketing more to people that are looking for. We used to have to read the label, and it's tiny print on the back. And sometimes, of course, we still need to do that. But yeah, a lot of your yogurts are gonna do the same. Good question.
Yeah. Another quick question here, asking if other fermented foods provide probiotics, like pickles, beer, even. I mean, does anything fermented count in this category?
Yeah, anything fermented counts, but I haven't done the research on, I know sauerkraut is in there, like, as a good one. Pickles and beer, I think both of those aren't on the K list because of their high sugar content. And so you get the benefit, let's say, of the fermentation, but then a lot of sugar is going to be, tricky for your body. We're going to look at the scoop on sugar in a few minutes, but yeah, I think that's why those aren't on the experts' top list.
So you're saying the healthiest diet does not contain a lot of pickles and beer, which is understandable, perhaps. But.
Yeah. I mean, they could be a superfood, but I haven't seen them on any
Nobody is putting them at the top of their list. I understand. Yeah. Somebody else just commented that they've been able to keep kefir to make their own, keep it going, cost next to nil, and keep it going for 2 years. So I think if you've got the motivation, perhaps that sort of thing is quite affordable to make. Maybe that's the time issue, but I've actually made some kefir too, and it's not so time intensive, but you've gotta keep it up for sure.
Yeah. We've done kefir at home and kombucha at home, and kimchi is the one we haven't tried, but our dear Korean friends that we were close with in Tajikistan would give us their homemade kimchi, which is like obviously off the charts. So yeah, if you can do it homemade, go for it. All right, so let's get the scoop on poop. I know that this was not in the cards, maybe you thought, because you didn't see it on it's called mood food. I didn't include poop because I just didn't know if that would maybe offend some of you. If it does, I'm sorry. We're already halfway through the the webinar, but you see a lot of things like these silly charts and things, which I'll show you one in a minute, maybe on social media or whatnot, but there's something to it. I know it's turned into somewhat of a joke, but if your poo isn't looking so great, it might be telling you something important. So it's really good to pay attention. For instance, what could it be telling you? That you may need to improve your nutrition. You might be stressed or anxious. You might need to drink more water. You might have a food intolerance. You might need more daily activity. You may have a health issue. I mean, it's kind of an easy thing to pay attention to. It doesn't mean you know exactly what it means, but most medical doctors will tell you, if you were to chart your poo and kind of if you think something's weird, you just like keep a chart, make your appointment and then keep a chart for the next 14, 21 days or however long you're waiting for that appointment. If you can go into an appointment with a a doctor, a functional nutritionist, or anyone with already some information. Again, you're curious about yourself. You say, hey, I've been studying, this is what I've been eating. This is what my poo looks like, or this is what my mood's been like. All of those things, you're already like 10 steps ahead because they have some good information to go on. This is kind of a fun fact. How often should you poo? According to the poo experts, 1 to 3 times a day. And that's a pretty high number for most of us, I would say. And so what could you do, or what would you choose that would get you pooing more of an optimal amount is a good question. Here's a good scoop on poop. It can tell you some things if you're paying attention, of course. Are your core muscles strong? Is your GI tract pumping nicely? Are you getting plenty of fiber? Are your hormones happy? Are you overly stressed? Is your intestinal flora balanced and thriving? Again, that's back to the microbiome, right? Is there enough good stuff going on in there? And so, yeah, you might need a stool test to figure some of this stuff out too. But at least if you're paying attention, you can have something to take when you head into the doc or talk to someone who has good knowledge. And here's one of the sillier charts, that you've seen maybe on socials, but hey, it actually can help you to know that type 4 right there in the center is the rock on. Good job, way to go, with the sausage shaped, smooth and soft poo there. And my greatest advice is, and this is because our amazing grandson Valor, he's 4, and he is still pretty amazed by his poo. And so that's why I put flashback to toddler days in his honor, because a toddler will most likely always look at their poo before they flush it, because it's a big accomplishment, right? It's like, Yahoo! And somebody is celebrating because they pooed on the toilet, and especially in the potty training years or months, whatever that may be. So go ahead and flash back to toddler days and take a look before you flush, because then you're paying attention, right? That takes us back to curiosity. All right, if you have any questions about poop, you can put those in the chat. We'll see what we can answer for you. And I'll move on to dig deeper here for a minute, and just wanted to highlight something. Go ahead, Lisa.
Before I move on too fast, there's a question. Just I know it looks like there's a link there. Is that the kind of the place to follow up to see what these ACK or uh-oh or meh, the red and orange and yellow zones mean?
Yeah, Precision Nutrition is where I source this from, and really the chart. I don't know why they did it this way, but the type 4 is the best, and then type 3 and 5 would be kind of meh, you're okay. Type 2 and 6 is like, uh-oh, something's not quite right. And then if you're type 1, hard, small, difficult to pass, or type 7, watery, also known as diarrhea in Central Eurasia, then you would be ACK, right? Something's wrong, which could be obviously like some kind of bug or bacteria or like Giardia or whatever. So yeah, so definitely want to pay attention there. Okay. So this is just an idea, and I'm just going to touch on this. There's not enough time to really do this justice, but I wanted to give you this info in case you want to do a little digging yourself. Dan Buettner is an author. He's an explorer, a journalist. He's produced some documentaries. Anyway, he's done a lot of research and a lot of travel. And what he discovered is what he calls blue zones. And the book he wrote, Lessons for Living Longer from People Who've Lived the Longest, is focused on 5 of these blue zones. They're all around the planet. Greece, Italy, let's see, Okinawa, Japan. There's one in Costa Rica, and there's one in Loma Linda, California. And really what he's looking for is populations that have a lot of folks per capita that live to be 100, and also are healthier, let's say, than other populations that he studied. So he's looking at two things that I like: lifespan, how long are you living, and health span, how healthy are you living? Because he does make a good point. What does it matter if you live longer if you're not living healthier? And we are seeing this actually in the West a lot. People are living a lot longer, but we have a lot more disease. We're more medicated in the West than we ever have before in history. And so that just tells us, yeah, we're prolonging life, we're living longer, but not living healthier, essentially. So Dan Buettner is saying, okay, how can we live healthier? Blue zone is part of how he proposes to do that. And that is just to take a look at how those populations eat and how they live, what are their lifestyle choices that that play into that. The reason why the Loma Linda one, and I'll just throw this out because everyone's usually surprised that somewhere in America actually made the list, right? Because aren't we the least healthy people? But Loma Linda, California is sort of the headquarters, let's say, for the Seventh-day Adventists. And they are vegetarians mostly, and they have, it's also lifestyle, their faith community and the way that they're connected with their community at large, and the ways that they have a lot of support systems and connection built into what they do in their faith community. So it's kind of a cool, you know, a way to look at it, because yeah, in all the other places, faith and family and connection and community are a big part of it as well. It's not just what they eat. But he does have cookbooks, and he does have things that will help you kind of take a look at how are those populations eating, and then how could I modify things to eat more of a blue zone way. And that's why at the bottom I said there is just one example of a way to eat, really a paradigm shift. So it's not a diet. It's not Whole30 or an elimination diet kind of thing. It's more of just let's shift things, let's modify things to get the healthier options in there. Yeah, so blue zone is just one example of that. There's other things out there, of course, you can take a look at. I just threw this graphic up because I like how he has simplified some things, Dan Buettner, you know, for always, for to avoid. I think keeping it simple is a good way to integrate some mood foods. And so, yeah, you can kind of look down the list and, you know, okay, what are some whole grains I can weave into my diet? What are, you know, nuts, a handful a day, that's easy enough. Beans, if you don't like beans, you could maybe do some legumes, increase your lentil intake or something like that. And then fruits and veggies, he says 5 to 10 servings a day. I've also seen that presented as, can you fill your plate with a rainbow, or can you fill your plate with 75% of fruit and veg, and then have your 25% be your lean protein. So I think things like that also make it easy. It's fun with kids, you know, fill your plate with a rainbow. If you try to do anything that's really over the top, over defined, over complicated, when you're trying to make some lifestyle shifts, it's, yeah, most of us aren't going to stick with it if it's too anything, because life has enough of that, right? So yeah, always, to avoid is a good kind of place to start. Okay, and I'm actually just gonna, okay, question.
Yeah, quick question.
Go ahead.
I mean, so it sounds like you've talked about not a diet, but there's a question just about what's I think typically referred to as the Mediterranean diet, which isn't necessarily a diet, but kind of a way of eating. Does that coincide with what you're talking about here in the blue zone specifically, or would you say that's a separate thing?
Yeah, blue zone, it really is Mediterranean, kind of a modified Mediterranean, but yeah, really, really spot on with, like, you know, your olive oil is going to be like your good fat, you know, and yeah, lots of fruits and veg, no meat or not too much meat. And really, if you're looking at, you know, Greece and Italy, that's going to be spot on for there. Japan, not so much. Like, we wouldn't call it your typical Mediterranean diet, but yeah, Loma Linda, I mean, a vegetarian diet that they follow, you know, is going to be really close to Mediterranean. And so, yeah, good. Yeah, it's another way to look at it, which is really easy here in Turkey because there's so much good food I've been enjoying.
Yeah, somebody, I mean, to that point, somebody else just commented that an important element is that we often there in Southern Europe eat locally and seasonally, which is something that we don't typically do in more developed or maybe in home countries where big grocery stores come in, you can get anything any of the time, but eating locally and seasonally, maybe a part of that. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was another key thing about the blue zones is they are doing a lot of gardening, farming, or sourcing locally. And that's just because they're just not moving far off from base. You know, they're kind of tied to their communities in ways that provides the support they need, but also provides, you know, if I don't have chickens, but I'm growing veggies in the garden, I'm going to trade you, my neighbor, you know, veggies for eggs or whatever, like a lot of that kind of thing. And a lot of their movement, they're not going to the gym. They're not those people because they don't need to, because they're walking around the garden and working and up and down doing that. And then they're walking to the village center or the city center to, you know, to market or those kinds of things. So their lifestyles incorporate a lot more movement than a Western lifestyle would. So yeah, if you can walk there or cycle there, those kinds of things, that's gonna help. Or get a goat, you know, that helps too. So other questions? Okay. All right, so there's 4 to avoid. You can see on this chart with the top one being sugar sweetened beverages, and then the third one being packaged sweets, cookies, candies, processed. So I really just think that if you had a takeaway, if you wanted to try one thing from today, that the scoop on sugar is going to be my recommendation. So as you read that there, you know, researchers believe that blood sugar swings, neurotransmitter dysregulation. Remember, that's that vehicle that's taking things, you know, from down the neural pathways. So when that's dysregulated, when that's not happening the way it's supposed to, or in the rhythm that it's supposed to ideally happen, and also inflammation, that these may all be reasons for sugar's detrimental impact on mental health. A study there, it was healthline.com is where I found this, but 69,000 women demonstrated that those with the, in this study, the highest intakes of added sugars had a significantly greater risk of depression compared to those with the lowest intakes. And this is part of my personal story. I really had no idea what, I honestly had no idea how much sugar I was actually consuming. And then really no concept of how that was connected to the depression that I was experiencing. And so once I kind of teased some of that out, I thought, you know, why not just try it? Try a little experiment. So this is my experiment with myself. You can try it on yourself if you want to, but what would I feel like? How would things look different if I did no sugar for 21 days? And 21, I just picked because a lot of research says it takes 21 days to kind of detox something out of your system. And there's other research that's kind of higher numbers, like 1 month, some say 3 months. So yeah, you can see what looks good to you, and also in conjunction with conversations with medical and nutrition folks. But again, if you decide to make a change, you get to do that because it's your body and it's the food that you eat. So if you decide to eliminate sugar, for instance, it's just so you can see, you know, does anything change? Do I feel a change in my mood or a shift in my mood in any way? And if so, then the next question is it worth continuing this, like fully being off sugar? Or is it worth modifying it in some way? And I feel like after I detoxed it, I was able to modify it and be pretty minimalistic with it. It's harder when I travel. It's harder when there's things like Turkish delight and baklava in the neighborhood. But anyway, just being honest about that. But it does definitely affect my mood, and obviously 69,000 other women agree with me. So men and women out there, you can try it if you'd like to. This is more of Dr. Uma. She says that added and refined sugars have been shown to feed unhealthy gut bacteria. So now we're back to the gut. Everything's connected. Absolutely everything's connected. And they increase inflammation in both the gut and the brain, which is one of the drivers of cognitive decline and dementia. And my mom is dealing with cognitive decline and dementia at the end of her life now, these last couple of years. So I don't know, when I read things like that, I just think to myself, I love a good cookie. I love a scoop of ice cream. And I think those are definitely doable, definitely a treat every now and then. But do I need that often, or do I need that every day? Especially if modifying that and minimizing that could help my brain to work optimally for longer, or my body, my gut to work longer and more optimally. You can see that list there. It's kind of a scary list, right? I mean, look at that. Health risks connected to sugar consumption. Wow, weight gain, liver issues, cancer, heart disease, acne, type 2 diabetes, drains on energy, cognitive decline, depression. It's not really where any of us would say we'd like to camp out for too long, or like to end up towards the end of our life, or anywhere in the middle even. So yeah, that's just food for thought. What kinds of things can I possibly modify that will, be a small tweak that could pay big, Okay, so I think when it comes to food and mood and poop, no, not poop. That doesn't match with this one, just food and mood. Is it tasty? Is it easy? Is it healthy? Why do I ask questions like that? This kind of circles back to what I was saying earlier. If it's not actually something I like if you don't like almonds, and I'm saying, oh, you got to have a handful of almonds every day, you're going to be like, why? I don't like almonds. Or maybe you have a nut allergy. But it has to be something you like. And then easy, I don't mean fast food easy. I mean, if you can go to the grocery store and actually buy the things that fit with what you're going to choose. If you have the veggie drawer in your fridge full of fruit and veg, it's easy to make that choice, or easier, let's say, to make that choice. If you have a bunch of sweet and salty snacks in the cupboard or in the pantry, it's easy to choose that. That's the thing that really just falls out when you open that cupboard, right? So if you had nuts or whole grain snacks, or different kinds of things that are gonna be tasty, be easy, be healthy, I say make it easy on yourself. Don't make it more work, and then I think really good questions to ask yourself is, how will I feel soon after I eat or drink this? So this is another thing that happened for me personally, is I was noticing my gut being very unhappy late, like every evening, an hour or two after dinner. And this was night after night. And it was actually my acupuncturist that I was first having this conversation with, and kind of the food as fuel thing. You eat it, it fuels your body in some way, but then sometimes your body's like, oh, I need a little different kind of fuel, or that's not really working for me, the fuel you're giving me. So in any case, tuning in, how am I feeling? Yeah, if you feel bloated every night after dinner, or a certain time of day, or crampy, or grumpy, or sleepy, or how, yeah, it's affecting you in some way. It could be food, could be a good thing to take a look at. And then how will I feel tomorrow? Because a lot of what so caffeine could be for instance, on this one. If I drink a cup of coffee after about 3, I'm not gonna get to bed at a decent hour. I'm not gonna get enough sleep. Tomorrow, I'm not gonna feel energetic. I'm not gonna have enough energy. And that's all tracing back to the cup of coffee that I had too late in the day. Sugar can be that way. There's a lot of things that can affect you into the next day. Alcohol can be that way too. Some people overdo it perhaps, and then that, I already talked about the high sugar content in alcohol, so that can be something that kind of sets mood off. People are often really dehydrated the next day if they've overdone it on alcohol, or sometimes that's 2 days worth of dehydration, which, that dehydration has all kinds of negative ripple effects. So really tune in, right? If I eat or drink this, how am I going to feel in another hour or two? And then how am I going to feel the next day? And that might be something else you want to chart. That might be something else you want. You can have your mood and your food and your poo all lined up in one Excel chart. That would be fun, right? That would be awesome. Okay, so we're back to head, heart, and gut. So I would love to hear some feedback from you, and you're welcome to share as much as you want to. Not that all of that's going to end up being part of this discussion that we're going to have now, but what are your thoughts? So checking in with your head, what are you thinking as you're hearing some of this information? Some of it you've known, some of it maybe you've heard for the first time. Heart space, what are you feeling? How is that kind of landing on your heart? If there's something you've been mulling over anyway, or some tricky mood things you've been experiencing. And then gut, really, how's your physical body, and kind of what are the what are your thoughts and feelings connected to how your gut or your physical body really has been responding to some of what you've been eating, or maybe it's a change you've made, a modification you've made, and you've seen some benefits, and you would want to share that. So you're welcome to do that now.
Yeah.
Also ask questions. Go ahead.
Yeah. Also, if you have questions, there's a number coming in. So, I mean, I'll just share one thing off the top of my head as some of these responses are coming in too. I think for me, eating and otherwise related, I always want to know, I want to see results quickly. If I'm going to choose to eat more healthily, I want to see results from it, because otherwise I notice the results of feeling better after eating chocolate, right? But I don't always notice the results of eating a salad consistently, which is why I really like the idea of tracking mood over the course of time with some of these changes, because that really does help. We know the power of attention. We know the power of directing our attention to something specific and giving yourself the ability to notice over a period of time the benefits of making some of these changes. It really does do that. I mean, it might have to be over an extended period of time, but if you notice the changes and benefits over a period of time, certainly a lot more motivating. So that was my thought.
Good one.
Other people are just saying they're, so someone's grateful to be reminded of these chunks of info. Maybe they've come across them before. And just a lot of agreement, tried to be disciplined through the years in food prep and eating habits. And another program that called Svelte training. I really like the word svelte, so I appreciate that. Mild exercise, but emphasis goes into metabolism building recipes. So that's a fun addition there. Somebody else said they're feeling really good about eating a salad while watching this. This is some really good reinforcement there. Yeah. Somebody else said they were recently diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and looking forward to trying these ideas to help fatigue specifically. I don't know if you want to speak specifically to anything along those lines.
Yeah, a lot of the ideas, so I'll speak to the chronic fatigue in a second, but the people are throwing out these other ideas. And I love that, people are finding nuggets, finding good resources in a lot of places. And I do think to your point, Lisa, about, you want to see results and kind of, have something, a marked improvement in whatever it is that you're aiming for. yeah, and seeing that really can be motivating, right? And can be so powerful. And that's like the 21 days thing. I think that's kind of the low end or conservative mark of where you would see some improvement. But even at that, like with the sugar thing, back to that, for me personally, if I overdo it on sugar, like I'll probably feel that tomorrow, or if I overdo it for a couple of days, like it's, by the end of the week, I'm already like, yeah, my mood is dragging. It is a depressed mood kind of response that my body has. So once you've kind of tuned into something, detox it, yeah, tune in and kind of like get more focused on it, then it is cool how it can, your body easily and more readily tells you. I mean, it probably was before, right? Our bodies sometimes are shouting things at us. But if we're not tuned in, yeah, we're just missing those messages. So yeah. So back to the chronic fatigue. There's so much literature around inflammation in connection with chronic fatigue, other kinds of autoimmune diseases. And so most research is going to say if you can decrease the inflammation, you can decrease some of the symptoms around those diseases. And yeah, and so I think take a look at that, because they're, yeah, like the, turmeric was one of the things on Dr. Uma's list to decrease inflammation. Eliminating sugar is another thing, but there are other things on there. So yeah, I think that, yeah, depending on who else you're working with too. And that's kind of where I'm headed with this next slide. There's the medical doctor, like, oops, I think, sorry, it's on, no, sorry. I think that's kind of where I was going with that last question. What's my next move? If you're already working with a medical doctor who has given you the diagnosis and who is maybe prescribing some medications, you have that part of the conversation taken care of, right? You have that piece of the puzzle. So it's just a matter of you thinking too, what are the other pieces? What else do I want to explore? And yeah, mood food in this whole genre. Is that a nutritionist? Is that a functional medicine doctor? Sometimes they're called naturopaths. And that it's just because they're going to look at our nutritional psychiatry. It's not saying, back to the start, like I was saying, don't do medications, or if you're on medications, you have to get off them. It's saying that's one option, and then food and what that can add or, eliminate for you can be super helpful. Of course, I'm a therapist, so I'm going to recommend therapy, and, a life coach, a spiritual director, all of the other support pieces. So a team effort. I'm just one person, why do I need a whole team of people? Well, it's not at this moment, maybe, that I need all 12 of those professionals, but at some point in time in my life, I have needed them all. And usually at any given point in time, I have my kind of 2 or 3 go-tos depending on what's popping up for me. If it is more of, medical health or mental health or whatever it is. So yeah, I just say holistic approach for whole body people, right? Like if we're going to take care of all the parts of us. And yeah, so that's kind of this stay curious. We started with get curious, and now we're going to stay curious. What is working? Really celebrate that. Give yourself a high five, or get somebody that lives with you or works with you to give you a high five on what's working, what you're doing well, what you have really conquered or dialed in, what's not working. And again, how can that encouragement, accountability, or a partner in crime help with that? Somebody who would want to make some tweaks with you and want to cheer you on and have you cheer them on. How and where do I feel stuck, and where do I see movement? Again, what's working, what's not, and then what's my next move? So that's really where I want to end. And we have time. If there's a few more questions, we can do that too. But if you can make a decision, I did, the scoop on sugar and kind of recommended that as an easy or possibly easy. I know I suggest it sometimes to people and they say, no, thank you. I'll start with something else. So, okay, that's fine. You don't want to start with sugar. But what else? What would you say I want to add or subtract? And that's kind of Dr. Uma's thing too, is just like, let's look at the abundance of, plants and foods and all what I know our creator created. He created the planet to work a certain way. He created our bodies to work a certain way. And what in all of this abundance, what is there that I choose to add? And then a lot of what we would choose to eliminate or decrease is kind of what man has done with stuff. It's ways that we've taken food and pretty much eliminated the nutritional value by coating it with things or processing it in certain ways. So yeah, can I eliminate some of that stuff that's probably not what the creator intended anyway for my body to be fueled by? So yeah, those are just some good starting places.
That leads to a great question posed. So of course we inevitably come back to sugar. Several people asking, what do you mean by sugar? I think first of all, so
okay. Yeah, refined sugars.
Added sugar versus sugar substitutes versus natural sugars and things like fruits or dates or that sort of thing.
Yeah, good question. So refined sugars are just the really obvious. I wish actually I had pulled this statistic for you guys, but I'm gonna guess at like 62 pounds of sugar a year that the average American consumes. It's a crazy high number. I know that sounds outlandish, but anyway, just Google it, you'll find it. But that's the sugar that we add to things, scoops of sugar to our coffee or scoops of sugar to our cereal, or, we put it in all the things we bake, usually in on the things we bake and that kind of stuff. So refined sugars are really kind of the devil in this genre. Sugar sweeteners, sugar substitutes, other kinds of sweeteners, not good for you as well. Your body doesn't have a great way to process those. So pretty much everything you eat that your body doesn't need, or it's a creation of man kind of thing that's not useful, your body's just trying to eliminate. And so it's a huge load on your body. It's called the toxic load, because the things that you're ingesting that it can't use, then it has to work hard to get rid of it. And then you're going to end up with the poo chart anyway, trying to figure out, well, why is my poo not healthy? And then, yeah, it's because your body's like, there's too much of this. I can't do anything with it, So,
sorry, just to clarify, because there's a couple questions around this. That sounds like that includes both things that are we typically know of as like bad substitutes, like aspartame, into the range of like the carb friendly sugar substitutes like erythritol or stevia. Would you equate those the same way, or are those?
Yeah, I haven't done the research on all the different ones and what's better than what and what's not. So honestly, yeah, most nutritional psychiatrists or functional nutritionists are going to say, if it's sugar in some natural form, if you need something sweet, eat sugar in some natural form, which would be a piece of fruit, a date, something like that, or some honey, something that, is actually a natural product. And then, yeah, you get a little sweet treat, it still tastes very yummy, especially if you do take a break from sugar and you detox it and, let yourself eat refined sugars, take a break from refined sugars, and then eat a date or an apricot or something. It tastes super sweet. It's really interesting. Or this was my experience, and then you're like, yeah. Or even if it's a treat day and you eat a little bowl of sorbet or something it can have no sugar, but the fruit, that berry or whatever it is just like, woo, super sweet. So that really kind of fixes up your sweet tooth. I have a sweet tooth, I admit it. So
great, thanks. There's a lot of questions are about sugar, so thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
some another question about monk fruit sweeteners specifically. I think there's probably some more research to be done for people around what are natural sweeteners. It sounds like what you're saying is that the sugars that naturally occur in foods are always going to be your healthiest, and maybe do some follow-up research about the impact. And maybe it kind of depends on what impact you're looking for, as far as when you do use sugar substitutes, perhaps what that looks like.
Yeah, and it is kind of tricky if you've done this, I was talking about reading the label, and it's all those little words, so if you are going to go 100% off sugar, I mean, it's in your peanut butter, it's in your bread, it's in everything, so you could also just choose to stop scooping sugar into your coffee and your cereal or things like that. Like, don't worry about what it's contained in necessarily, but take a break from dessert and scoops of sugar or something. Like, make it easy for yourself to try something that could be a shift. And if you want to kind of geek out on it, go for it. I mean, it's not, read all the labels, go for it and do all of that. If you really want to dig deep, I support you in that as well.
Yeah, this isn't, I was just thinking again about your description of the blue zones and how important the community of that is. This sort of thing is quite a bit more easier when you're trying to make changes or make healthy choices in the context of your community, maybe your family or a group of friends that are willing to make some of these changes with you. It really stinks to be the only person not eating brownies, all the time. So good to, if your friends and your family aren't here at this webinar, pass it along to them if you want to make some of these changes and say, what about doing this together?
Right. Yeah.
Often people are looking for a buddy.
Yeah. And since my family is here, I'll just own up. If my husband, I don't think he's ever offered me a root beer float and I've turned it down. It's not possible. I went for 20 years without root beer. And if he's making me a root beer float, I'm going to drink it,
That's great. So he knows the power of the offer then.
Yes.
You'd mentioned food sensitivities at one point. Eve, is there a specific, I know food sensitivities can be linked to all kinds of kind of dysfunction in the body, for anywhere from sensitivities to allergies. Is there a correlation between food sensitivities and effect on mood in your understanding?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And there's, one thing about what I was saying is, what's my next move? Maybe you haven't had a doctor's appointment in a long time and blood work in a long time or in a while. And I would say that would be a great place to start. If you sense that maybe you do have a food intolerance or food allergy, then that's a good question for your doctor. Asking for hormone panels, and what kind of deficiencies are going to show up in the blood work, and show them, what's missing. And if you ask, so in the West right now, and I know a lot of the places where people live around the globe, like there might be options like this, but your general practitioner kind of doctor in most of the places that we live is going to do the basics. So you do kind of have to ask these questions. And if your doctor is saying, yeah, well, I don't do that kind of stuff, or I'm not going to look that deep, then you probably will have to go hunting a little bit, or maybe wait till you get back to somewhere in Europe or somewhere in the States or something. But I get this from a lot of people too. My insurance doesn't cover a naturopath or a nutritionist or a functional functional medicine doctor. And I get that. And unfortunately, that's the truth of where the medical system is at right now. But if you just look at the cost of what's a few of those appointments would take, and then you as the patient get to do really the ongoing care, you eliminate this or add that or this supplement or whatever that doctor would recommend or that nutritionist would recommend, then it just gives you like so many tools and resources to carry on with. And I say it's worth it. It's going to be worth it, because you're not going to need ongoing care for the medical condition, because then the medical condition could be yeah, either the symptoms could be decreased, possibly eliminated. And so, sorry, I talked circles around that question, but the food allergy intolerance thing is yeah, definitely connected to mood, definitely worth looking into. And a lot of it at that really foundational level is back to what I said with the things that you fuel your body with. If your body doesn't see it as fuel, or doesn't really need it, or doesn't have a way to process it, then your body is doing its best to process it or eliminate it or do something with it. And an intolerance or an allergy is often that. It's like, oh, this isn't working for me, is what your body's telling you. And that shows up in some reaction or some response, usually at a physical level, but really it'll show up at a mood level too. Plus the fact that if you're not feeling well physically day after day, if it becomes a chronic condition, your mood is going to respond to that, because any chronic condition is going to, yeah, if I have to sit close to the toilet, or I can't go on outings, or I can't have my morning run, or whatever that chronic condition affects, then yeah, my mood's going to start to respond to that. And I'm going to see some depression or some anxiety, most likely based on those physical symptoms that I'm experiencing. So it's all tied together, thanks to the way the Lord created us, and sometimes tied together in a way that makes it feel like a tangled mess. And so having some professionals and some good friends to help you tease it out a little bit and untangle some of it can be really helpful. I highly recommend.
Good word. Well, I think that seems to be the end of the questions. A few testimonials in here about the power of healthy eating and how it's kept people healthier, feeling better, losing weight, certainly off of some significant medication, and with needing able to avoid surgery. So there's lots of people here who are just testifying to the power of good nutrition, which I can appreciate. Yeah, I think also just like to highlight that you've provided several good resources and follow-up places where people can kind of check in with online resources, people who are experts, that they can continue to get either little snippets of information or probably deep dives if they're interested in that. So a copy of Eve's PowerPoint as a handout will be available on our website once we post this recording. So check back in a day or two on the website to get a copy of the PowerPoint if you'd like to, didn't get a chance to write down all of those resources. Those will be available ongoing for everyone.
Yeah, and I'm sure you hear this, Lisa. Used to be, if an author writes a book, you buy the book, you read the book, and then you know what they said, right? But of course, it's not this way anymore. And so if Lisa and I in our office with clients, are recommending a book, let's say, and a client says, well, I don't really like to read, then we used to be stuck, even just a few years ago, and have to kind of tell them what the book says, in 10 minutes or less. But now if people don't like to read, it's not a problem, right? Because there's no end to the options of audiobooks and podcasts and blogs and vlogs, and YouTube's full of, all of these folks that I shared snippets from, which just scratches the surface of the body of knowledge that they have researched over decades, and yeah, we can find all that at our fingertips and listen to or look at that information in really, user-friendly ways. And so, yeah, I would say take your curiosity and do a little research project and dig in a little bit more to whatever's caught your attention, and yeah, find some fun ways and really doable ways to see how mood and food are connected for you.
That's great. I don't know how many of the rest of you are already thinking about your lunch tomorrow, or your breakfast, your dinner today, if you're not there yet, and how to incorporate the rainbow, but that's definitely where my brain goes. So we'll wrap up here and leave everybody to just go explore your CRISPR drawers to see how much of a rainbow you already have, or how much you need to obtain from here. Eve, thank you so much for your your time, your expertise here. Appreciate very much what you shared. There's lots of things coming in from people, good practical information and good stuff to apply right away. So yeah, appreciate you a lot.
Awesome. Thanks. Been fun being here.
And see you all next time.